All right, guys, welcome back. Okay, so this is our day six, and congratulations for those who have made it today till today. So let's talk about CSS positioning and display. Okay, so we have seen elements, we have seen how we can actually style the elements, but right now, how do we position these elements on the page? This is about layout. So how do we position these elements? How do we display them? How do we position them? Okay, so you will be reading the docket book, that HTML and CSS chapter 15 layout. Just focus on the positioning. Focus on the positioning. Then for the Robins, you would also be reading positioning and floating elements. Focus on the positioning. Okay. So we'll talk about display types. We'll also talk about positioning of elements. And then your assignment will be to create a sticky header for your site. And also you'll be adding a back to top button with position fixed. So we'll also be doing some exercises to show what we are doing here. This is very, very practical. And it's an interesting topic because I remember when I when I'm also writing my pages and I'm positioning them, there are one or two things that always go off. Okay. And I will make sure that I put you guys through on this. And again, make sure you read these books. The more, if you read books, you get to understand so many other things. That's why we are giving you the books. I can't really talk about everything here because I can't really remember everything to talk about. So make sure you read this book. Okay. So there are four types of display. You can display elements in different in different types. The first one is block. Okay, remember we have there are elements. Some elements are block elements, while some elements are inline elements. Block elements always take the full page, like the width of the browser or the containing element. They always take the width of the browser or the containing element, and they always start on a separate line. They also push every other thing following them to start on a separate line. So we also have inline elements like this. Now, block elements are like the div, all right, the paragraphs, the H1, or the heading tags, okay? And we also have the inline, something like the span, the EM, the strong tags, the anchor tags, even the image. All right, these guys are inline. They always flow inline with the page. So we also have the inline block. You can actually make an inline block behave as if it's a block element. And we also have none. Okay, none means that the element will not be displayed on the page. So this is mainly important when you're building a responsive application. So sometimes you might want to have some, let's assume that maybe on your web page you have your navigation links. Some of the navigation links or some of the things on your navigation, you don't want them to show on mobile devices. All right, so that means you would have to, although we're still talking about responsive design, and mostly we're using Tailwind CSS. So we use display none to, okay, say if this screen is of so size, we are not going to display, so this display will be none. We'll even have other ones like flex or even grid. So, but we'll talk about that in the next session. But right now, let's talk about how do we display elements. The first one is block. Okay. So you display it as block. That's the default. For block elements, the default is block. For inline elements, the default is inline. But you can actually change them using these attributes. You can actually make a block element to be an inline element. So now, with the block element, the features is that they start on a new line and they take up 100% of the parent's width by default. So the parent can be another block element. So it is called a containing element, or it can be the browser. So if this element is not contained in any element at all, that means the parent element will be the browser. So it will be taking the browser's width. Okay. So you can set the width, the height, the margin, and the padding of this block element. You can actually do that. Okay, and it occupies the entire horizontal space unless you limit it. So if you don't limit it with the height or the width, first of all, it will take the whole horizontal space, which is the width, and again, the height will not be um, based on the content. So if the content is small, the height will be based on the content. So if you have a bigger content, the height of the element will be big, will be high. All right. But if you have a small element, the content now. I think I mentioned this when we were talking about content and the boss model. Okay, so this is the block element. And examples of block elements are the div, the p tag, the h1, the h6, the section, the header. Okay, these are block elements. So let's go and do some exercises. Let's go to the to Visual Studio Code. Here I have this is day 6, right? Okay. Now I will just have to copy. Let me just copy some things that we have here. All right. Let's work with what we have here. Let's work with what we have here. Okay, you can see that we have all these block elements, the H1, H2, the P, they're all block elements. Okay, and if you watch, I think we also, I have removed the styles that we had before. So H1, whatever. So I'm going to remove everything here except for the universal selector. So I'm just going to pick the H1. All right. This H1, I'm going to look at what I'm going to do. I will add background color so that we'll see the width of this. I'll add background color to be blue. So this will help us to see the width that this H1 is taking. So I would go to live. All right, you can see, look at the browser. You can see that this H1, because it's a block element, is taking the width of the browser. And of course, it doesn't have any containing element. So if I go back and I will add, look at what is going to happen. Remember that the H1 has occupied the width of the browser. That's the width of the containing element. Right now, the containing element is the browser. But what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to wrap this H1 inside. Let me maybe wrap it inside of a paragraph. So the paragraph will not be the containing element. Okay. And of course, since the paragraph, I have not styled it, I didn't give it any width, it will still take the width of the browser, which is the containing element here is the body tag, sorry. Okay. And of course, the body tag, the containing element of the body tag is the HTML tag, which all of them are not taking the HTML tag is also taking the browser width. So right now I have not restricted this element. So if I still go back to the browser, it will still take the length, sorry, the width of the browser. Now, let me now show you that the containing element right now is the p tag. And I have told you that the block elements, they take the width of the containing element. And right now, this containing element is p tag, which does not have any restriction on width. The body tag is the containing element of the p tag. It doesn't also have any restriction. Even the HTML does not have any restriction. So I can just go back to my style sheet and I will say the p tag, I would say the width of the p tag is, let's say 400 pixel. I can also use percentage. I can also use percentage. Um, okay, this didn't give me what I was looking for. Okay, let me go and use the body. All right. So I think my example here doesn't really make sense. So let me take out the p tag. The containing element right now is the body. That's the containing element. This H1, the containing element is the body. And you can see that I have actually styled the body to have the width of 400 pixels. And you can see now this H tag, this H1 tag have not taken the width of the containing element. Now, because the containing element right now is, excuse me, the containing element right now is the body. the body has been the containing element all through, but just that we didn't restrict and the body element. So now you can see that the containing element now is 400 pixel, and that is why the H1 is also taking 400 pixels. So if I go on to reduce the width or reduce the width or increase the width, you're going to see that this will change. So um, um, block elements actually take the weight of their containing elements. This containing element could either be another element or it could be the browser. All right. So in this case now, our H1, the containing element is the body. Okay. So I will go on. Now we also have inline elements. The inline elements are the EM, the span. So they do not start on a new line. They flow in line with surrounding content. All right. If you take a look at this EM that we have here, this EM is flowing with the EM, even the strong and the EM, they are all inline elements. They are flowing with other contents. They are wrapped around them. So now, this EM or the strong as inline element, they don't start on a new line. They flow in within the content. Okay, they flow with the content. So they only take up as much width as its content needs. So normally for in block elements, they would occupy the width of their containing element or the browser, okay? But for the for the inline elements, they only take the width of their content. And again, if you try to apply width to these elements, it will not work. Let's go. Let me show you. If you try to apply width to EM or so I'm going back to my style and I'll say EM and let me give it a background color. I'll give it a background color of red, and then I'm going to give it width. And I have told you that the width, inline elements, they don't, the width does not apply to them. So width and height. So if I say that the width is, let's say 900 pixels, it's supposed to be long. So if I go back, I save, and I go to the browser, we'll see that the EM, you can see the background color was applied to it, but what's it called again? The width wasn't applied. Do you understand? Well, it wasn't applied. So something like margin, okay, even margin left and right would work, but margin top and bottom would not work for inline elements. Okay, margin top and bottom will not work, will not be applied, but margin left and right will be applied. I just wish I can explain everything, but it's not possible. It's not just possible. That is why you need to read. That's why you need to read. So if I give margin here, remember, I'm using shorthand here for this margin. So I'm going to say margin top is 50 pixel and left and right would be, let's say 100. So you're going to see that there will be margin. If I save, you can see that the left and right margin were applied, but the top and the bottom were not applied. So these are common things that done for inline elements. Margin top and margin bottom doesn't apply. Width and height don't apply to inline elements. So you cannot set width, height, margin top or margin bottom. You can't, but only horizontal margins and paddings would work. Something like left and right, maybe padding left and right would work. But width, height, margin top, margin bottom, padding top, padding bottom will not work. So examples of inline elements are span, anchor tag, the strong, the EM. Okay. So now, what about the inline block? If you say that this element is inline block, it means that it will behave like inline. All right. It doesn't start on a new line. It will behave as it will behave like inline elements, but it will not allow you to apply width, height, margin, and padding to it. So look at the difference here. If you say that an element is inline block, let's assume that now we now change the display of the EM to be inline block instead of by default it is inline. So if we're not changing to be inline block, it will still behave as an inline element. That means it will not start on a new line, but the width, the height, the margin left, the margin top and bottom, and padding top and bottom will be applied. Remember, normally it wouldn't by default, it's inline, so width height does not apply to them. So let's go and do some coding. So remember, the margin didn't work. Okay, the margin top and sorry, the margin top and bottom didn't work. The width didn't also work. So let's go and see what we already have on the browser. You can see that the width was applied. Okay. Sorry, not the width. It's not the width that was applied here. It is the margin left and right. The margin top and bottom was not applied. The width was not applied. So let's go and see. Let's go and change this EM to be display. Let's change the display property to be inline. We'll change it to be inline block. Now it is not inline block. So what if you make an inline element to be inline block, what will happen? First of all, it will still be an inline element. That means it will not start on a new line, but with padding top, padding bottom, margin top, margin bottom, and height to be applied. So as soon as I save this my file now, you see that the width has been applied. And you can see the padding top and bottom has also been applied. You can see we now have a different structure here. So that's the difference between inline block and inline block. Okay. But for me, I don't think I've ever used inline block before. Maybe because of all my applications, I've never needed them. So now this is a tool that you have just added to your skill set. Okay. Now it is in case you need, for some reasons, you want to apply width to an inline element, or you want to apply margin top and bottom to an inline element. You can actually do that with this. All right. So it is great for layers where you want block-like styling in inline flow. So whenever you want to add some block-like styling to an inline element, then you would change it to inline. So the next one is none. If you ever say that the display element will be none, that means that element will not be seen again. It will no longer be visible. It will no longer be visible. So the features, they completely remove the element from the document flow. That means you will not see the element again. The space is reserved. The space will be reserved. Okay? The space will be reserved. That means the element will go, but that space it was occupying will be reserved. All right? So unlike visibility, there's another property we call visibility. If you also want to hide an element, you can also use the visibility property. So if you change, if you set it to hidden, it will hide the content, but I'm sorry. Please, with the non property, sorry, with the non-value, okay? When you set the display to be none, the space will not be reserved. That was a mistake, sorry. The space will not be reserved. That means you will not see it here. But if you want to reserve the space for some reasons, you should use visibility and assign it hidden. So the content, the space would also be reserved, but the content will not be there. All right? So let's go and do something here. So with the EM, I want to change the display to be none. You see, once I make it none, the space will no longer be reserved. The content will be, you'll not see anything there. You'll not see the EM again. So if I go to the browser, you can see we don't have it anymore. We don't have it anymore. But if I still want to hide it, but I want the space to be reserved for some reasons, I would use the visibility. I don't think I've used this visibility property before because of maybe there have not been any reason for me to use it. So, but you just need to have this in your skill set. So if I save this now, you can see that space, even the width and everything was still preserved. Look at it. The space was preserved because we are using visibility instead of display. So if you don't want this space to be reserved, basically where we use this is maybe on our navigation bar. So maybe on mobile devices, you don't want the particular link to be shown, or you don't want a particular content to be shown on mobile devices. So you actually say display is equal to none. All right. But for some reasons, if you want to still have the space, there can be some, you might want to have some crazy structure. You use visibility to be none, to be visibility to be hidden. Okay. So let's compare. For block elements, they start on a new line. Inline elements do not start on a new line. Inline block do not start on a new line. None does not even appear at all. All right. Can you set the width and the height? Yes, you can set the width and the height for block elements. You can't do that for inline elements, but you can do that for inline block elements. And for none, it's not available. So do they take the full width of their parent element? Yes, the block takes the full width of their parent element, their containing element. Inline does not do that. Inline block does not do that. None does not do that. What about visible on screen? Yes, block will be visible. Inline will be visible. Inline block will be visible and none will not be visible. Is it going to be part of the flow? Yes for block, yes for inline, yes for inline block, and no for none. So none will not even be available at all. All right. So now let's talk about CSS positioning. This is this is more interesting than what we have been looking at. Okay, because sometimes you will be seeing some crazy things on some web pages and you'll be like, how did they do this thing? So I wish that time permits us. And I think it is now time for you guys to be asking questions on the WhatsApp group. All right. We have not been doing our live classes the way we are supposed to do it. So make sure that you start throwing. If you feel like you have anything you want us to discuss, throw it in the WhatsApp group. All right. Some people are like, the assignments are not too serious and all those things. If you feel like yeah, it's something you want us to create based on what we have learned so far, throw it in the WhatsApp group and we'll do it in a live class and I would present all those things and we do those live things. So now the position property controls how an element is placed in the document flow. Remember, these elements, they follow the flow. All right. HTML is passed from top to bottom and from left to right if the language is English. So, but if the language follows a right to left, no, English is read from left to right. There are some languages like, oh my God, of Arabic, Hebrew, all right? They are read from, I think, if I'm wrong, please. This is not about language, okay? But I'm sure I saw Arabic. I know of Arabic starts from right to left. You read from right to left, and even Hebrew, I think so. But if I'm wrong, no problem. Don't crucify me. So for now, if the language reads from left to right, that means the document will flow from left to right. If the language reads from right to left, the document will flow from right to left. If the language reads from bottom to top, the document will flow from bottom to top. Okay. So now, but there is a way you can actually reposition the flow. You can be like, oh, I don't want this p tag to be in the same flow. I want to take it out. I want it to be here. I want it to be there. Sometimes you'll be seeing some website, you will see a button that is just floating, maybe by the bottom right corner, and you say maybe go to top. Or sometimes you'll see some navigation bars, bars that are very sticky. When you're scrolling through when you're scrolling on the website, they will just be there. They will not go out. So that is what we'll be learning right now. Okay. So now the first position is static. All right. Elements have this property called position. The first one is static. That's the default. They are static wherever you put them in your document structure, in your web page. When you're designing your HTML, wherever you put the element, that is where it will be. So it's the static. It follows the normal flow of the document. All right. It obeys whatever you say. You told the element you must be here, and they are there. So they don't change. They're always there. Okay, so it can be top right, bottom left. They don't, if you try to say, maybe you're going to understand all these offsets, the top, the right, the bottom left, Z in there, they don't have effect on this static. So this is the default. If you're not going to be changing the position other than static, there's no need to even use it because it's the default. Okay, so now let me go back to my HTML page. You can see that, look at how this whole thing is structured. They are all static and they follow the sequence. If we go back to our browser, you can see that these things follow from top to bottom. all right? And the ones that are inline, the content flows like this, all right? The content flows from left to right, but you can change the positioning, okay? So by default, they are static. So the next one we'll take a look at is relative. Now, relative doesn't really do much, but I'm just going to show you some examples, all right? And basically why you'll be needing relative. So when you say that the position is relative, the element will remain in the normal flow. It will remain in the normal flow, but now you can now use the offsets to change. You can use offsets. You can offset it visually using top right, bottom, and left. All right. So it will still remain in the normal flow, but original space is still preserved if you change it to relative. But basically, I'm going to show you there's something we call positioning context. There's something we call containing block. So basically, we use position relative when we talk about the absolute positioning. We see that we use the position relative to create a containing block for for the element that we want to position absolute. All right. You might not understand what I just said now, but it's okay. As we go on, you'll understand. So mostly we use relative to create a containing block or to create a positioning context for other elements. Now, but I'm still going to show you how this works. Before I go to this example, let me show you my own example. Now you can see that okay, let me have um okay, which one should I use here now? Okay, let me just go. Let me create a style rule. So I'm going to remove these guys. Let me remove them. Okay, so let me just call this relative. Okay, let me create a class and it's relative. So I will say the position would be relative. Okay, and of course, if you say it's relative, it doesn't change without the offsets, sorry, it doesn't change anything. So I'll go and in my D6, I would let me say, okay, let me add, you know what? Let me add more, things. Okay, let me see if this example will work for us. So this paragraph, okay, sorry, this strong element, I'm going to apply the class, and the class is relative. So it means that this element is now positioned relative. Although I have not done any relative positioning on inline elements, and I'm doing it here. So, all right, let me take it off. Let me put it in the paragraph. But what I will do is that I'm going to add more content to this guy, to this div here. So maybe I will just take this guy and um okay, so now I have made it relative. If we go to the browser, there is no change. Nothing will change because I have not used the offsets. So you can see I have not used the offsets. So, but if I go now and say, okay, I want this to be relative, but I want it to start from the top. All right, I want it to start. I'll give it top and I'll say from the top, I want it to start from let's say 100 pixel. All right, let's say 100 pixel. So from the top, there will be an offset downward. Since I'm using a positive value for this top offset, it will come inward from the from the border downward. Okay, so you can see now there is an overlap. Okay, wait, this container, the div container, let me give it I think I only have one div there. So let me give it a background color of, let's say blue, so that we will see these things will be more visible and maybe, okay, okay. So if I save now, you can see that this position, oh my God, I don't know how best I can explain this. Okay, let me go back. You can see this important guy, the space is still there. But it is now it has overlapped down to somewhere else. Okay, let me change I just hope you guys will understand what I'm doing here. Okay, so let me change it from 100 to 200 so that it can come down. You can see now, look at where it is now. This is not the original position. It's supposed to be somewhere here on top of this one. But right now, when you give an offset, something like the top now, we are saying from the top, come downward 100 pixel. If I give it a negative value, it will go above. Guys, try to understand what I'm doing here. I don't know how best I can explain this anymore. So right now, I'm giving a positive value, okay? And this positive value, okay, it will start from the top, which is the border. Of course, you know the boss model. We just thought we just treated it. So from the following the boss model, the top will start from the border. And since we gave it a positive number, that means we are going to push this element downward. But if I give it a negative value, all right, it will go upward. It will go upward. So if I say negative 200, look at what this guy will now go from here. Look at where it is now. It has gone somewhere here. But this whole thing, you see where it is now. All right. And of course, the space is still reserved. Look at the space is still reserved. So this is for relative. You can use it if I go now and say, okay, I want to give a left offset. If I say from the left, I want you to go another 200 pixel. So look at what will happen. From the left border, it will push inward. That means it will be going to the right because it's a positive number. So if I save this now, you will see, look at where it is now. So now, look at what we have here. We have made this element that used to be here to be relative. And then we now said from the top offset, go minus 200. That means go above. All right. It went up. And we now said from the left border, go 200 pixel. And that's what you saw. That's why you see it is this place. All right. Well, basically, you might not be doing this unless there is any reason, because most times this will overlap with other elements in the page, all right? So you might not be doing this, but basically you actually use this thing to create something we call a positioning context or a containing block for other elements, for other positioning values, okay? So this is the example. You can also do bottom, you can also do right. Okay, so you can see here the position is relative, the top is 10 pixels, it moves downward from the border. If it is minus, it will move upward. Then the left is 15. It moves towards the right. Okay? Okay. So we have another one called the absolute. This is mostly used. I use this a lot. If you check your profile picture on the profile page, you will see that that camera icon is sitting somewhere down. Yeah, it's sitting somewhere on the axis of that image. So this is what we use absolute to do it. Okay, even your notification, your notification component on the web page, you will see that when you have a notification, it's there 1, 2, 3, and that thing is so we'll show you how we do that here. So absolute, it will remove the element from the normal flow. The relative does not remove it, it preserves it. So, but when you change it to absolute, it would remove it from the normal flow. That space will no longer be reserved and it is positioned relative to the nearest position ancestor. So this nearest position ancestor could be, it has to be a relative or an absolute or fixed or sticky. Okay, so basically, you cannot do an absolute positioning without a positioning context or a containing block. So this absolute positioning should be inside of a containing block or a positioning context. And how do you create a positioning context? You can actually create a positioning context by making the containing element to be position relative, absolute, fixed, or sticky. But basically, it should be relative. So if no such ancestor exists, that means it will be positioned relative to the HTML element. So if this element does not have any containing block, it will be positioned relative to the HTML element, which is basically being relative to the browser viewport. So let's do some examples. So let's go back. Let's change this our guy from position relative to absolute. But let's see if it will work because the containing element is not even, we don't have any positioning context right now because the containing element have not been positioned. So if I go back to the browser, um, where is it? You see, we don't even have it. We don't have, it's not showing, but it has been replaced. The space has been replaced. Now, it's no longer showing. We don't have it anywhere around here. So, but I think the reason why it's not there is because the containing element has not been positioned. So what we do is this, we have the div. So I'm going to now say, I will create a positioning context here and make the div. Remember, you can see now, since I have brought in this div, now I've made the div a positioned element now. I've created a a positioning context now. You see, we now have it here. But the difference here is that the space is no longer reserved, but you can see it still follows the minus 200 pixel from the top and 200 pixel from the left. So if you still want to change it, you can go and change it. You can, if you make it to be 200. So it is now relative. It is positioned, it is relatively positioned to the containing element. You can see where it is now because we have changed the top to be positive. Okay. So, um, of course, the parent, in this case, the parent is the div, should be position relative, and the child should be position. So if you make it top zero, left zero, that means they will just still be there. There will be no movement. They will still be there. All right. So here the child is position relative to the parent. So we also have fixed. We also have fixed. So with the fixed position, it removes from the normal flow, just like the absolute. It will position relative to the viewport. Now, the fixed does not need to have a containing element. It is positioned relative to the viewport. It's not positioned to the containing element. All right. It is positioned to the viewport. That's the browser, the HTML. All right. It stays fixed on the screen even when you're scrolling it. It stays fixed on the screen. So if I go back and then I will have to take this guy out. Okay, and then I could make this guy to be fixed. Let's see. Okay, and maybe I should go and who's guy? I should go and add more content so that we would have things to scroll. Okay, all right. So if I save it, this can be very tricky. This guy is very, very tricky. So if I scroll, you can see that this guy is fixed. This guy is fixed. It is not scrolling. Look at it. It's not scrolling. Okay, let me add. If you're not seeing, let me add a background color. It's not scrolling. It is fixed. So I'll add a background color. I go with red. You can see. Now it is 200 pixel from the top and 200 pixel from the left. So from the browser, from the HTML viewport, from the browser viewport, it is 200 from the left, from the top, and 200 from the left. So as we are scrolling, look at it, it's fixed. Now, most mistakes that I used to make, most people make is that when we are doing our navigation bar, we make it fixed. All right. When you're doing your navigation bar, you should make it sticky, not fixed, because when you make it fixed, it will, if there is any element um in this position, it will block it. So now you can see now this is fixed. Now, it stays fixed on the screen even while when scrolling. It's great for sticky nav bars or floating buttons. So basically, don't use it for nav bars, use it for floating buttons. But whenever you're using it for floating button, make sure that that position that there will be no content there because if there's any content, it will be blocking that content. So your users will not see what you have there. So it is it is better for floating buttons, not for nav bars. We'll do some exercises anyways. So example is, I've just shown you an example. So this will remain fixed there to not scroll. All right. So the next one we have is sticky. Sticky, all right, as relative until a threshold is reached, then becomes fixed. This could be very tricky, very, very tricky. All right. And I don't know the best way to explain this, but it needs a define, it must, for it to work, you have to look at the fixed. If I don't add the fixed, if I don't add any offset, there will be no issue. It will still remain fixed. Look at where it is. There is no offset, and look at it. But if you try to do sticky, all right, if you try to do sticky without giving it a top offset, it will not work. So if I go back now and maybe try to change this thing to sticky, all right, you can see it will not work. But this is tricky. This sticky is tricky. This sticky is tricky. This is for the fixed. The fixed is related to the viewport, but the sticky is relative to the containing element. All right, and it will be visible until as long as the containing element is visible. So if I say top, you might not see the difference. If I say top like this, you might not see the difference. Okay, look at it. It will still go out. Okay, but then we'll be doing an exercise to show you where you should use the sticky and the fixed. All right, it only works within the bounds of its parent container. Let's not be speaking this too much grammar. Let's go to exercises. I will show you more. This element will stick to the top as you scroll, but only until its parent is scrolled out. Now, let me take this my style. Instead of putting this my style, using it on this guy that is here, where is it again? I will take it out and then I'll put it, I'll make the first element to be sticky. Then if I go now, you will see it is sticky now and look at it. You can see it is available. And you can see that it is not blocking any content. All right. As we made it sticky, there is some space between the next content. But if I change this guy now, look at it, it still sticks. All right. But if I change it to fixed, look at it's going to block, it's going to sit on top of other elements. So if I make it fixed, that is why you shouldn't use fixed. You can see, look at it now, you can see. Do you see? You can see now. Look at where it is. But if it is sticky, sticky will not block. Okay. If I refresh the page, you cannot see H2. We are not seeing H2. This guy is blocking the H2. All right, look at it. If I scroll up, you cannot see the H2 on top. Oh, it's blocking the H2. But if I change it back to sticky, this is the reason why you should use sticky for your nav bars. You can change it back to sticky, but sticky will not work for floating buttons. You can see that the H2 is on the is shown. All right. So now these are visual summary. These are visual summary, and take your time to go through it. I've already explained all these things that we have here, but take your time to go through it. All right. For static, that's the default. It is normal to the flow. It follows the normal flow. Relative is not removed from the flow. Its origin position is maintained. It is relative to the origin position. Absolute is removed from the flow, so the space will not be maintained. It is nearest to the position elements. Phase is relative to the viewport. It will be removed from the flow. Sticky is removed from the flow until it gets sticky. It will get sticky whenever. I don't even know how to explain this, Sha, but I don't know how to explain it. Okay, so now what are the common pitfalls? Forgetting to set position relative on the parent of absolute children. So when you're working with absolute children, all right, absolute elements, you must remember, don't forget to set the position of the containing element to be relative. If not, it will not work. Okay, thinking sticky works across parents. It doesn't. So let's take a look at some exercises. The first one is the absolute inside relative. So make a parent container position to be relative. We have done this actually. Place a child element absolute at the bottom right of the parent. Okay, let's just do this. Let's just do this exercise. Okay. So we are placing the element at the bottom right. So if I go back, we already have this our guy. Okay. Okay, so let's just create something. Let's take everything out for this exercise. So I'm going to have a parent. Sorry, I have a parent div. I have a parent div, and then I would have some content here. Let me go and borrow some content. Mhm. So I have some content here. So now let's make, if we go to our browser, this is where it is. So let's make this our small heading. Let's bring it to the bottom right. So what do we need to do? We have to position this smaller heading to be positioned positive. Then we'll give it the bottom to be 0 and right to be whatever we want to give it. So, but first of all, we need to make the parent element. We have to create a positioning context. So we need to make the parent element relative. So I will go to my style. I will make div to be positioned relative. Then I'll make my relative guide to be positioned. Oops. Absolute, sorry. Absolute. And then I'll make, they said we should put it bottom right. So I'll make the bottom to be 0. And then we'll make the right. Let's also try right to also be 0. So it will be, let's also make it 0. So the class name doesn't matter actually. So I'll save, I'll go back to there and then I'll add this class. Whew. Relative. You can see where it is now. Look at it. It is now far. Remember, it is now bottom right. The bottom is 0 and the right is 0. So everything is done. So you can see how we have repositioned this element from here to here. Okay. We can also have a fixed navigation bar. If you have a navigation bar that you don't want, you want it to be fixed. You don't want it to scroll. So you create a navigation bar that stays fit at the top while scrolling. Okay, so let's go and do this exercise. Um, I'm going to divide this. I will divide it sections. I will divide it in sections. Okay, so I'm going to have 3 sessions. All right, I have this one, I have 2, I will have 3. So this is going to be, the first session is going to be navigation. Okay. Of course, we're still going to use this guy later. This is this. Uh, okay, this will be where our navigations would. All our navigations will be here. Okay, and then we'll have some list item here. I can just say home. I can say home. It doesn't matter where they are now. Don't bother about the name. Okay. Now the second session. Okay. So the next one would be here. Here will not be my sidebar. Here will be my sidebar. And then here will not be the body, the main content. Okay. So if I save this now, go to the browser, of course, they are going to come like this. Okay. So now we were asked to make this our sidebar to be sticky. And then, okay. Whew. So what I want to do here, we haven't talked about alignment. Hmm? So I don't know if this is going to, but anyways, um, what do I do here? Okay. So this is our first section. I'm going to put all these sections under another section. Okay. I don't know if I'm going to confuse you. I'm going to confuse you guys with what I'm going to do here. Okay. But if you get confused, just drop the question in the comments in the WhatsApp group. So now I am going to we haven't talked about flex boss. So I don't know if this is going to be a problem. And I don't like doing things that I have not taught. So maybe I will leave this. Okay. Maybe I will leave this when I have a couple of exercises I want us to do here, but okay, I'm going to leave this since you guys don't ask questions anymore, and we're supposed to do in the live class. I'm going to leave this thing. If you want us to look at this exercise, the face navigation bar, all right, the sticky header. Okay, of course we have done sticky header already, so I will do sticky header here because it will not stop us from the sticky header that scrolls with the page until it reaches the top, then stays fixed. We have done it already. All right, so a model that is centered on the screen using position fixed. And here we would also need flex boss. So if you want us to do this, remind me of it after the next class. The next class will be on flex boss. So the exercise 3 and 4 is a sticky sidebar and a fixed model. All right. Remind me of it. So a side panel fixed and to the left, we would also need, you see these exercises, all right? If you want us to do them, drop it in the WhatsApp, let us do it so that we can come together at night for the live class. A floating button, all right? Drop it. We can also do that. We have 6 exercises and we have done 2. I've shown you the sticky header. I've shown the parent to be relative. We've done the first one. So the other ones, if you want us to talk about them, drop it in the WhatsApp group and we'll talk about it in the live class. So thank you very much, everybody. Do your test, do your assignment. Most importantly, please read these books, these chapters that we are recommending, read them. The more you read, the more skills you acquire, the more things you know. Read them, okay? Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next class. Peace and love.